Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline is the athletics director at Wake Forest. He is John Currie. John, thanks for the time. How are you?
I'm awesome. We're ready to roll here. We got a sellout crowd coming to a Legacy Federal Credit Union Stadium next Thursday night.
Look at this AD getting his talking points in already. I love it.
A long list of them right here, you know.
I saw how much you're raising annually, and I'm sitting here going, this is a man with a background, with a logo. This is a man who knows what he's doing. Didn't get here by accident.
No.
Well, I've made plenty of mistakes in my 31 years of college athletics. I'm just
we all do. We all do. So I'm assuming you've had a nice, chill, easy summer at Wake Forest. You know, after you go to the College World Series, obviously not the ending you want, but it was an incredible journey. You just kicked back and got ready for the football season, right? Nothing major going on.
Well, we had actually put up a list yesterday. We had a little operations meeting because we got a big game on Thursday night next week, and we just had a list of all the new things that we've got, new concessionaire, new this and new lights and all this kind of stuff and new staff. And so the operations aspect of what we do when we entertain, last year we had 450,000 people come to Wake Forest games here in Winston-Salem. And so the operations aspect of that, getting ready. We're also hosting right now an ATP 250, the Winston-Salem Open, which is a tennis deal, which has been going on for like 12 years right now. So it's never ending for that group to get ready. And this past year, to your point, we had an incredible year. Our 10th national championship, which is something only 7 schools, including Wake Forest, have done in our league in women's golf, and then going to the College World Series. And the College World Series impact of hosting those 2 big weekends and then being in Omaha for a whole week, there was definitely some human capital expended on that from an administrative standpoint.
Did you take a shot at that bar that keeps a leaderboard for all the teams?
I did go in and take a picture. And in fact, I sent the picture to Dr. Wente, who was not there yet. And I went in early. Now, I did promise our team if we won, I would go in there and buy them all. I would top it off. So I didn't get that opportunity yet. Right. But, we've got a great
21. We're drinking responsibly.
Of course, got to drink responsibly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Wake Forest at the end of the day.
Who broke the barrier of selling alcohol at football games, by the way.
But
I think the big irony that people pointed out was that Oral Roberts was doing better than Virginia in that particular competition, which was somewhat contradictory.
Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll stop being cute about it and get to the thing that's fascinated just about the rest of the ACC. And you're in the ground level of it. From your perspective, did you think once you left Amelia Island, where all the ADs are gathered and Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC, is talking about, look, let's just all get on the same page here. Let's not play this out publicly. Were you surprised that it spilled out again this summer, thanks to a public Florida State Board of Trustees meeting that was on Zoom?
Right. Well, no, not at all. Never. 14 years as an AD in 3 conferences, and going through the 8 years I went at Kansas State when the Big 12 in the Big 12 period from 2009 to 2017. One of the great things, really smart things, among others, that Commissioner Phillips said at the end of that meeting, he said, all these institutions around the country, it's not just in the ACC, are under tremendous pressure. Higher education is under tremendous pressure. There's a lot of pressures, political pressures, you name it, everybody that manifests itself in different ways at different places. And when you have places with, all well-meaning, well-intentioned board members who feel a fiduciary responsibility for their university that they're represented, whether they're politically appointed or meritocratically appointed, et cetera, so you're going to have some different, comments. Mike Alford is a good friend. We go way back, and we talked the day before that meeting in Tallahassee that they had, and we talked after it. So none of that was very surprising.
When you've worked at Crazy, which John Currie's done, you're Mike Alford's friend because he works at Crazy now. Right.
Well,
so you have.
I'm not denigrating or criticizing any of our 15 institutions. They're all really different.
For you, like Florida State is crazy. It's fine. You previously worked at a school that is crazy. I would love to have Tennessee in the irate Giglio conference. Like that's mad respect for the passion of those fan bases. So no, but you're like one of the people who would understand his position. That's the politically correct way of putting it, I guess.
I appreciate Michael. I appreciate Florida State, and I appreciate the pressure. Everybody's under pressure again, and in this moment of time, one of the things that I take comfort's probably the wrong word, but that I remind our people, and including fans of the ACC and fans of Wake Forest, we're at Wake Forest. We're at the strongest point we've ever been from an institutional perspective. From a national brand profile perspective, we got the fastest growing brand in the Power Five, fastest growing fan base. And from an infrastructure perspective and from a winning perspective and an academic perspective, we're the best we've ever been, right? And you're going to have ups and downs in athletics. And so to be in this moment of time of, kind of different existential factors that face the enterprise of college athletics, there's a lot of uncertainty, more uncertainty than ever before. But I'd much rather be facing this moment of time at, I don't want to say peak strength for Wake Forest, because I consider us continuing to be going up the mountain. But I like our position.
Okay. Well, how do you think you've been able to build that strength? Because you are, don't make me be the one who points the obvious out here, at the smallest Power Five school. So it's fairly remarkable. And I'm looking at the Winston-Salem Journal article that says you've raised more than $30 million this year.
Right.
I get, there's doctors and lawyers there. I get that, but that's impressive, man. Really impressive.
Well, one of the things I think that is a misnomer, and I appreciate you asking the question. If you read my occasional newsletter from the Quad to our fans, I pretty much said, stop saying small. Right. Wake Forest is distinctive. It's intimate. It's high quality, but we're really not small. And small is not an impact when you have 2.7 million fans, which is, I think, like ninth in the league. We're moving up. We're about 25,000 shy of NC State. We're 50,000 ahead of Virginia Tech. Right. And when you have a city and a community, the triad. I'm actually sitting in Lawrence Stroll Veterans Memorial Coliseum right now before a meeting, and there's 1.3 million people within 30 minutes of where I'm sitting right now. It's one of the best, highest rated ESPN markets in the country. And we've got all these strengths of the state of North Carolina overall. So Wake Forest has been able to continue to, be uncompromising in our commitment. I think Dave Clawson said it best at the football media days. We're still going to run a college football program at Wake Forest. We still have athletes that go to class and graduate and get multiple degrees and all that kind of stuff. And so I do believe that there's passion, there is excellence, and then our staff has worked hard to elevate our communication and social media and all that kind of stuff over the last several years under Will Pantagis's leadership. And as I said in my letter, people watch winners, and Wake Forest has won. From a football perspective, we averaged 30 points a game over the last 5 or 6 years, which is the only school in the league to do that. I think us and Ohio State are the tops in the country. Coach Clawson has had us in a bowl 7 straight years, which is the second longest streak. It's the 11th longest streak in the country. We've won 5 out of the last 7 years bowl games. So, and then you've got all the other stuff with baseball in the College World Series and women's golf and soccer, et cetera. I mean, every program we have except one was in the postseason last year. So, that winning has an effect.
John Currie, Wake Forest AD, joining us here on Ovies and Giglio. So we talked to former North Carolina Chancellor Holden Thorpe a couple of weeks ago. Because chancellors, presidents of universities have to operate on a completely different level. You're focused on athletics. The chancellors, presidents are working on everything related to the university. So they rely on you, the athletic directors, to inform them of what's going on. So what conversations have you had with the head of Wake Forest this summer with all the speculation and reporting around expansion of the ACC? I guess I'll get to the point. Based on reports, there were only 4 schools that voted against Cal and Stanford joining the ACC. You were not one of those schools. So I'll infer from that you're pro Stanford and Cal joining the league. What is the conversation? What is the advisement for those 2 schools, in your opinion, to join the ACC?
Well, first of all, Joe, as I sent you the note, I thought that interview that you did with Holden Thorpe was incredibly well done. I thought Chancellor Thorpe's candor in that was really, I shared it with our team, with our advisory team, with our board, because it really gave a lot of the context and the history. And it's really easy to forget some of the context and history. And I also believe that if you look, there's criticism right now. A lot of it's self-imposed about grant of rights and our existing ESPN ACC network contract. But the reality of it is that this is not a good time in the broadcast media industry, right? I mean, all you got to do is read the thing and jiggle. I mean, the ticker or the CNBC or.
I like that.
So
we gotta get one of those.
We need one.
We need one of those for the podcast here on StreamYard. We got to get one.
All you got to do is read all that stuff.
Yeah,
read those articles about shareholders and Netflix lack of profitability and all those kind of stuff to realize we're in a really disrupted time. It's not unlike a mortgage crisis time, right? And so it's really easy to sit here and say, well, every deal would be better, and that might be what it might have been, but that's not the reality right now, right? So we're in a pretty good position. And even I thought the interview that my former president, Kirk Schultz, who's now the president at Washington State, gave with Pete Thamel a week or so ago when he talked about the Pac-12 could have done a deal, back in the fall and didn't do it because they thought they could get, 60% more, which is kind of like, when I wanted to sell my house in 2009 that I bought in 2007, it wasn't worth what I thought it was worth because you don't recognize what the market is. So in response to your question, which you asked like 30 minutes ago, Joe, about our conversations with President Wente, I'm really lucky. We're really lucky at Wake Forest that President Wente has extraordinary experience, from being at Vanderbilt, being an interim chancellor there. So that gave her exposure inside the Southeastern Conference with Commissioner Sankey, et cetera. So she's got great balance and perspective. And college athletics has been really important to Wake Forest for a long, long time as a charter member of the ACC. So those are regular and constant conversations. President Wente is a biochemist. Mm-hmm. I think I said that right. So she's pretty analytical. She likes data and she likes feedback, but she's also able to really dispassionately look at the factors that are important for our university and for the ACC. She's part of the ACC Executive Committee. I think if you look overall at the landscape, we know, and in my particular situation, I've just lived the fact that this enterprise is consolidated over the years. Mm-hmm. Going back 30 or 40 years, this enterprise is consolidated in college athletics. And I was there. I mean, I remember very distinctly the night the Big 12 died. I mean, the old Big East died, and as it splintered somewhat to the ACC, we were in the Big 12. We picked up one. I remember that 3 weeks ago, the Pac-12 died essentially, which is very sad for college athletics and for all the institutions engaged in it. And so, as you look at consolidation being inevitable, there's some real arguments that strengthen numbers and adding really strong universities that reflect the values of our league, that are relevant to the populations of our universities. All those are reasons that things can make sense. Now, on the other side, there's also, it's different. I've been quoted this week. I mean, I grew up on Tobacco Road, and I knew in 1982, I could have named all 5 starting quarterbacks. I mean, all 8 starting quarterbacks in the league. I could have named all, the starting lineups for all 5 basketball schools. I watched Wednesday night, and so that was great. It's not going to be like that again, right? It's just not. And so how do we make sure the ACC, particularly for the state of North Carolina, which is the anchor of a Power 4, I guess now, conference, right, in Charlotte, how do we make sure this thing continues to stay strong for generations? And so those are some of the factors I think that have to be weighed as we're examining, different options.
So if I play field hockey for Wake Forest and I say to you, John, hey man, I'm here because I want a great education. I'm here because I want to win. I'm not here because I want to go to Palo Alto on a Tuesday night. I'm not here because I want to go play against Stanford and Cal. What would you say to me?
Well, we talked to our student athletes. And in fact, our field hockey team last year flew out to Palo Alto and played Stanford. We played Cal Berkeley, and we played UC Davis. So, the student athletes that we have in our league are used to playing at the highest level. The student athletes at other schools, they want to play at the highest level. And this is the highest level. We're also spoiled in the state of North Carolina. We've been for years, we get on I-40 and we go to Durham or Chapel Hill or down 85 to Clemson or, up 29 to Charlottesville, and it's a bus and we drive down and we come back, and we're spoiled. Right. And if you look at schools in our league, for Miami and Boston College and Syracuse and Notre Dame and Florida State, every game is a plane trip. I mean, every trip is a plane trip. And so the facts are that if you have West Coast school, if you had one or two West Coast schools, and I don't know, again, those are presidential level conversations, but just looking at it on the surface, if you have, two West Coast schools, you're looking at, a football program is going to go out there once every 4 years, right? Okay. It's just, we're already out there back and forth. I can't remember the numbers, but it's 7 or 8 of our teams were out there last year in that vicinity. And then if you look at other places, that's part of the deal. I don't minimize that though. And it takes creativity and it takes planning and that'll continue to be part of the enterprise. I also think, not to make my answer even longer, which I don't know what the record is for the
you have a future in radio.
Yeah, you do.
And podcast.
Well, keep me in mind, because this is a volatile AD business, right? The other thing is that just as it's not always like it was, I don't think it's always going to be like it is. And I believe it's very possible. And I believe there's a lot of really good reasons to look at regionalization of competition in sports.
That's my next question. Do you see a future where football could break off and be separate from those other sports so that those other sports could be regionalized?
I see that football has really unique aspects, really, really unique. And so whether it's a breakaway and football becomes its own thing, like the Knight Commission has advocated for, which is a thoughtful idea, or, some other element. But we don't have to. We've tried to treat everybody from an NCAA perspective. We tried to treat everybody the same way, right? And I remember one specific. This is an autonomy meeting. We're down in Dallas, and there were 3. It was like Noah's Ark, right? There were 3 people from every conference and stuff, and one of the, and including student athletes, right? And one of the
risk of explaining the Bible to you, John. There wasn't 3.
It was only 2.
I know it was 2, but I'm sorry.
It was like it was like
if he was at State or a public school, I'd let him get away with this, but I can't at Wake Forest.
Well, historically Baptist, right? So I'm American Baptist, right? So anyhow, but in this conversation, one of the ideas, which I thought was a great idea, is, hey, let's have the first 3 weeks of the January semester every year completely, no activity. Be like the NFL, lock everybody out of the building, no activity, no athletics, no voluntary practices, no captain's practices, no nothing. Well, who raised their hand and said, no, we can't do that? Swimmers. Swimmers can't not be in the pool for 3 months, right? I mean, for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, right? They can't do that. So you can't treat however many sports it is that the association sponsors. I think we sponsor 23 ACC championships or something like that. We have 18 sports. You can't treat everyone exactly the same. Like in men's soccer, the ACC is the best men's soccer league in the country, right? We don't play everybody in our league. I think we have 12 teams or 13 teams in the ACC for men's soccer out of 15 schools. We don't play a full round robin in men's soccer. I think we play 8 regular season games, right? So like Wake Forest, we didn't play North Carolina Chapel Hill last year in the regular season because that's how that sport has decided to arrange its schedule because it's such a strong league to be able to be most competitive and build towards the NCAA tournament. So my point is that all of this stuff, there's flexibility and there's ways to adapt to maybe new geographic realities that don't compromise competitive excellence and do allow for the ability to make sure our student athlete welfare is appropriate.
When Dr. Wente asks you, does Stanford and Cal help us financially? Your answer is?
Well, I'm not at liberty to share all details of those kind of ideas. And really would defer the question. I think overall, you've got to look at these things as short term and long term, right? What's the effect of not making decisions to expand, which may be the right decisions. What's the effect of making those decisions? Some will be evident immediately. Some won't be evident for 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years or whatever. So. I think you got to look at the big picture of strength and where you want to be, down the road. I won't repeat Wayne Gretzky's often cliche.
I thought that was Michael Scott's. I'm getting the quotes. I'm getting the quotes wrong.
No, I only ask you because you're making a compelling case, and I haven't heard one yet for Stanford and Cal, and you're in the game, man.
Yeah.
So I value your opinion and what you're saying, and it's easy for us to sit here in the Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh and say any of these things, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fantasy camping going on here, right? and because we're not in it, but you're in it, and what you're saying about your field hockey, it's resonating with me. I'm just curious though, because I think ultimately financially is how these decisions get made, no matter who makes them, and no matter at what level, right? Like that's the reality of the world. So,
I'm
not trying to put you in a difficult.
Yeah. Well, one of the advantages that our league has is we don't have to do anything right now.
Thank you.
It's part of our fantasy camp.
I've been screaming this for the longest time, and I've used the phrase. It's kind of a golden handcuff situation, but the grant of rights allows you.
It's a gift and a curse
to not have to do anything. Okay. And I find it frustrating that there's just because everybody else is doing it, we have to do it too. When you know the history of college athletics, you know that with every amount of expansion, there's a contraction. The ACC was born out of that bloat of another conference to do something that was more like-minded. So I find it very strange that there's this like, we got to do something. Actually, you don't.
Yeah, you don't. But, not doing anything is doing something. And
that's fair. That's fair.
As you assess, different options. When I go back to the luxury of not having to do anything, we don't. And we see what happens when conferences get into a position where they have to do something, right? It just happened 2 weeks ago, and it had devastating consequences, right? So the trick and the threading of the needle from the leadership is making the right decisions to maintain the leverage and advantaged point. And you're really to be able to be in a position where you can make a decision, not because you're under duress, but because you have the opportunity to take advantage of opportunities. And leverage is an opportunity that doesn't always exist.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you can certainly, rush into something and not be thoughtful, and you can make bad decisions. And I would say in the ACC, it's not like, we woke up a week ago and said, hey, we ought to think about expansion.
Sure.
Why don't we do one? I think there's a long time period of thoughtfulness and assessment. And we've got 15 really, really smart presidents leading our league, and we've got a smart commissioner who's well advised. And so I have trust that the decisions that are made will be ones that are the right decisions for the future of our league. But we really shouldn't underestimate the fact that this is a really strong league. It's already the best league of academic institutions in the country. It already wins, other than the Ivy League, of course. But we're a lot more accessible. And it already wins more than any other league. So those are two pretty good things.
And you also have access right now. I guess we can close the conversation on this. And we thank John Currie, AD at Wake Forest, for his time. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey always looks at opportunities to benefit the SEC. He's the commissioner. That's what he should be doing. I'm not faulting him. It's not a knock. And he's looking at the disruption of these Power 5 conferences, or now the Power 4, and he wants to change the dynamics of the college football playoff, which had automatic qualifiers for the top-ranked
top six,
the top six conference champions. That gives the ACC access. I thought that's what this is all about: access to winning. And I feel like by getting rid of the current setup, it actually does not give the ACC any more leverage. So, what kind of conversations are taking place about what you want to do for the college football playoff with a conference commissioner and a conference that probably wants to benefit themselves by having more teams included that might keep the ACC out?
Well, first of all, I'm just trying to get ready for a women's soccer game tomorrow and a men's soccer game tomorrow night and a new concessionaire and all that kind of stuff. But in all seriousness, I think Commissioner Sankey's made a lot of really smart comments this summer, questioning, challenging lack of progress nationally on NIL, common sense. And it is appropriate to examine the CFP in light of some of the membership changes. There's other things. We've had really lack of any kind of standard for a number of schools that want to join FBS, right? And so there are. I mean, we're at a disrupted time, and it'll be appropriate and to continue those conversations. And I know Commissioner Phillips is in contact with the other commissioners regularly. And I believe that, going forward, that stuff will work itself out, and it'll be just fine for the ACC.
Okay.
The bottom line is we got good programs in the ACC and a lot of excitement. And, we're in 10 great states right now with great populations. Obviously, the state of North Carolina, great business epicenter and great educational institutions.
All right, we covered a lot of ground today, so I'm going to let you slide this time. How you killed the NC State football rivalry. That's for next time.
Come on. Look.
Tell me what happened, man.
Yeah, how are you not a primary? What's going on?
Fine. And what? What are we doing?
We got a lot out of that deal, and that was, it's hard to change that dynamic. Coach Clausen, the divisional dynamic, Coach Clausen always jokes that there was always 6 votes against any change, right? Or 7, from the coastal people that didn't have to play Clemson every year, like we have. But, it is good for fans that you're going to play everybody in the conference at least every 2 years. For us, our annual games that are every year are Duke and Virginia Tech, which is right up the road, and Atlanta, which is a great, city for our alums and folks. The Big Four rivalry is incredibly important to Wake Forest and all the schools in our state, and we talk about it all the time. So hopefully we are playing the Wolfpack this year on November the 12th. Right here, and we'll have an awesome sold-out crowd.
You're beating the Wolfpack at your place this year.
They beat us last year. They
at your place, man. Last year, even the Phillip couldn't win there.
Speaking, and we'll close on this. Speaking of football and Dave Clausen, he's a big Talking Heads fan, and they're going to be I almost wore my Cure shirt today, but we have merch to sell, including our own T-shirts. But he's a huge Talking Heads fan, and Stop Making Sense, the classic concert film, is being re-released in 4K on September 29th.
Right.
It's not lost on me that Wake Forest has an open date that weekend. You don't play on September 30th. Was that by design?
He's going to close the stadium and put it on the big screen.
I'm just curious if that's something that
he might be going to the premiere in New York. But I do think it's very appropriate when we're talking about college athletics and we're talking about the Talking Heads that while you were thinking about it, I was thinking about Stop Making Sense too, because we stopped making sense a long time ago.
Yeah. Great name for a podcast.
Yeah, it is. The podcast you could do when you finally decide to get out of this AD business.
It probably won't be elective. It's not a decision.
John Currie, Wake Forest Athletics Director. We appreciate the time. We appreciate the candidness. And we will talk to you later. Best of luck this season.
All right. Thanks so much.